HO scale model railroaders. If you can't buy it, then build it. I'm currently working on a BN B30-7A, and I tried buying a shell on eBay, and the Northwest Pacific shell. I put in my bid for what I wanted to pay for it, and I didn't get it. So then a couple weeks later, I bid on a Atlas B30-7 locomotive, a BN, and I put my bid in, and I didn't bother bidding any higher than what my bid was originally, and I managed to get that. So I'm currently building a B unit, which is a cabless unit, out of parts that I have sitting around. This is a Kato CSX. You want to call it a -9. It was originally a -8 shell, and they happen to have the vents, the same size vents that the B30-7 had. So let me pause this. All right, this is a CSX-8-9. It's currently now a -9. They upgraded it, but it's the same frame as a -9 that I bought from Kato. You can't see the other side, but it had a crack in the shell, and I managed to find another shell on eBay, so I replaced that shell. So I ended up with a shell. So I cut it up to make that B30-7. This is what's left of the Kato -9 shell. And you see how I cut the long hood to fit over the short hood. Like that. And then I have some parts I had from some kit that's going to be on the front, and then I use milliput, or however you want to pronounce that. It's a 50-50 two-part solution, and this is very old. This one part is solid, this other part is workable. I used it over a year ago, and just add water, and you cut it up into small pieces and mash it together, and I'll use that to fill in all these gaps. I may put some plastic across that in the back so that the putty has a place to go up against it. And I'm going to before I do that, I'm going to fill in the dynamic brake on this, fill that in with some plastic. This screen here is from a SD60 Proto 2000 shell that I had bought years ago from a local hobby store that was damaged. So I used both sides of the screen, and here's the vent. The vent is there, and I used pictures on the computer that I got off from Railroad Archives to give me the directions on what to do. Here's a mistake I made. Right there, I was cutting from the back side, and I cut too much, but I'm going to fill that in with this putty. But anyway, what I'm getting at is, if you can't buy the kit, you can't buy the model, you have to make it with parts that you have available. I never throw anything away. And you work with it. Let me pause. Like this one here has got Proto 2000 ST60 parts in it, and it's an actual Kato ST40-2 shell. And I see Scale Models is actually making this, but I made this years ago before it was available. So then here's another. This is a Caslo cab on, well, actually this is a a Caslo shell on a Proto 2000 SD60 chassis. So that's an SD60 CN. And then, I don't know if you can see, here is a Caslo cab on a Kato-9, and here is another Caslo cab on a Kato-9. Okay, so that was fun to do. And then this is all Athearn. I had this in another video. This was an FP45 Genesis, but I wanted an F45, so I had to cut down the shell, and I bought a F45 chassis. Well, I bought the frame, the frame, and I had to cut down the drive shafts from the FP45, and I put track nails in it because glue wouldn't hold the drive shaft. So anyway, this is a project that I did. Couldn't find a F45 Montana Rail Link or a F45 any railroad on eBay, so I got an FP45 for like $60, so I cut that one down. I've done several Proto 2000s that I've cut down the nose on. This is an SD9. And then you have to make your own windows. This is an Athearn GP60B that I bought. I didn't have to make this. And let me pause. All right, this is a Kato SD40-2 B unit that I made. I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I probably could have done a better job, but this is a B unit that I made for my son. I like spending time making things. I spend more time making them than I actually spend time running them. But with a little bit of, I have auto body experience, so I have a little bit of knowledge on how to paint things and do body work. But I use a Pache airbrush. And plastic is easy to work with. You glue it together and you use that spot putty. You fill it in and you sand it. This cab, I did this cab on this loco. The number boards and stuff, I did all that with that putty. This is a Proto 2000 SD7. Okay, and then these are Athearn GP38 shells I cut down. And this is another Proto 2000 CP that I cut down the nose to make it lower, and the number boards are all done by me. Okay. Oh, and I've done a lot of these canopies on the Kato SD40-2s, many of them. I've got so many I can't even keep track of how many I have. Here's one here. Those are easy to do. Another Proto, either a GP7 or 9 that I cut down a nose and put the external air filters on. And this one here, I didn't cut down the nose on that, I just put the air tanks on it. And another Kato with the canopy. This is former CN that BNSF bought. I don't understand BNSF. They get rid of some SD40-2s, then they buy used ones. Maybe the used ones are better than the ones they got rid of. See, BNSF would never have kept it this loco as long as it would be to be like this. I just wanted to have some old ones, rusted, but that's not prototypical. And oh, I just want to mention, I do a lot of shells and never get chassis for them because it's hard to get a chassis. If these are rail power products shells with a Kato cab. These are the Cotto cabs I took off the Cottos to put on the Caslo cabs. And these are Cotto ST or GP35s that I don't have chassis for. Every time I do I paint a shell and I don't have a chassis, it sits there waiting for a chassis. I wish these companies that made these locomotives would sell chassis for people that need a chassis later on, because here's another SD40 that I don't have a chassis for. And finally, this is a Caslo CP SD40-2 F. Kind of remember the letters that each railroad uses that I did. After I did all these locos, most of them were available from the model makers, Bowser and Rapido or whatever. Okay, so unfortunately, I can't find a B30-7 shell that's available because Pacific Northwest is not in business anymore. So I have to make it myself, and there aren't currently any manufacturers that are making this model. So I'm building it myself, and it's a good winter project. And I have skills to do this, and maybe you don't, but if you work with it, take your time, you could end up with a nice looking model. Okay, thank you.